Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever.
Sometimes you just want to go home, and they say that you can never go home again, but that is not true because here we are, flashback. It is 2024 all over again. This is insane. This is maybe one of the biggest things, the biggest obstacles. Forget the delusion about how much money they think they get. This right here is what is limiting this league. We have seen it for 2 years now. You thought maybe after Caitlin Clark played through it, had this great rookie year despite everything that was going on the court and off, it would kind of relax a little bit, right? She'd trial by fire and all that. There would be some let up from the players, from the media, but no, there isn't. They're continue to ramp it up, and we're going to get into the so-called fans who are an actual problem, where there is proof that they are an actual problem. Did I mention welcome back to the channel? Thank you for being here. Appreciate all your support. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Of course, shout out to the 19. Do me a favor if you get a chance, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. It helps out tremendously. Let's dig into this article a little bit. It is going to give you a sense of deja vu, but I think that's why we have to talk about it because it is something that just happened now, and we really need to address the true problem with the fans. Listen to this opening. Tell me if this sounds like something from, I don't know, May of 2024. The spotlight around the WNBA keeps getting brighter. At the same time, the pressure that comes with it is becoming harder to manage. Caitlin Clark's rise has brought unprecedented attention to the league, but it has also exposed a growing tension beneath the surface. The challenge is no longer whether Clark should be promoted, it is how the league, media, and fans respond when she is. Again, something in 2024, which, by the way, when we get all through this, I'm going to share something else, just like I did in a recent video, that is they just simply can't let go. Because I will tell you, in fairness to essentially sports, overall, everything I'm seeing in here in terms of how they're framing this is well done. And then they make one mistake that everyone just cannot stop making. But so anyway, this was, for those of you who know, I did a video on it the other day. Hopefully you watched it and enjoyed it on Caitlin Clark, the announcement of Caitlin Clark being on the halftime show, right? The NBA broadcasting on NBC. And I think February 1st is her debut. I think she's doing it a few times. I know there's at least one more time in March. And so, of course, that was announced. Why wouldn't it be? It makes sense, right? Now, and in fairness, look, now in watching the whole thing, there were some things Elle Duncan said that, but she's Elle Duncan. She's going to walk a fine line. But in this respect, she said something that was actually, I thought, well said. So anyway, what happened? WNBA shared an Instagram post highlighting Caitlin Clark's involvement in NBA broadcasting. I'm going to show you that post. The post was later deleted after drawing a wave of hostile and divisive responses in the comments. That reaction has become increasingly familiar. Keep that in mind. Whenever Clark is promoted, a segment of the conversation shifts away from her accomplishments and toward arguments about who else deserves recognition instead of celebration. The discourse turns corrective. Instead of momentum, it becomes defensive. Great example that maybe the greatest example that I think we know is a specific example is the Washington Mystics coach when Caitlin Clark was Time Athlete of the Year and on the cover of Time, and it was, oh, the entire league, every player in the league should be on the cover, even though it was Caitlin winning a award for an individual person. They should all be on the cover because they'll feel bad, because their ego will be bruised, because they'll get all emotional, right? This is childish stuff. This is the era of participation trophies, and this is the end result that you get. You cannot have accomplishments cited for players. You cannot congratulate players on things that they've done or awards that they've won because everyone else is going to tear you down. Now check this out. I'll just show you this real quick, and then we got to get back to this fan stuff. Right here it is. Deleted by the WNBA, a toxic land, toxic to the fans who follow Caitlin from the NCAA, 100%. So here's all it was. NBA and NBC and Peacock, right? They're having Caitlin Clark on. Of course they're going to promote it. Can't wait to watch Caitlin on Sunday nights. That's all they said. There it is. Caitlin Clark joins Sunday night. Basketball as contributor, I'm really excited to be part of the Basketball Night in America crew this season. Carmelo, Vince, and Tracy are legends of the game, and Maria is a true professional. It will be really fun to join them a few times this season. This is as boringly boilerplate and innocuous and inoffensive as an announcement for something like this could possibly be. And I don't say that derogatorily. That is not an insult. I'm making that clear because of the fact that they had to delete this. Because why? Not because of Caitlin Clark, not because of Caitlin Clark fans getting all nasty. No, no, no. It's because of everyone else who hates Caitlin Clark. Keep that in mind. It's not about the fans. This is not triggered by the fans. No Caitlin Clark fan says something nasty, and then everyone's like, oh my God, that's the most awful thing. I'm offended by that. No, no. It is the other way. Caitlin Clark gets this innocuous announcement because she got something because of who she is and what she does. And the so-called WNBA fans, the old guard, all seven of them, could not handle an announcement by the WNBA on something Caitlin Clark was doing. They are incapable, and they don't have to celebrate it. That's the point. They like to twist and say, "Oh, you have to." No, you don't have to like the post. You don't have to go into the comments and praise Caitlin Clark. You don't have to thank her constantly for bringing ratings and eyeballs and eventually money to the rest of these players. You just don't have to do anything. You certainly don't have to be so obnoxiously toxic, to use one of your own words, that you need to go into the comments and be so abusive that the post has to get deleted. But that's where we were since the beginning of Caitlin Clark's time in the WNBA. I want to get back to something L. Duncan said because, to her credit, this is why I say I will give credit where credit's due, and she deserves credit for this particular part of her piece. You should celebrate Caitlin. Duncan said, I think with women in general, there's this idea that if you exceptionalize one woman, you have to acknowledge every other woman that came before her. We don't have to break off the crown and give every single little person a piece. Her point was not about ignoring history, it was about removing the condition attached to praise. This is 100% true because we saw it ever since Caitlin Clark got into the WNBA. The constant talk about not just current players, but we had to go all the way back through history, right? It was like every time they want you, every time you brought up Caitlin Clark, it's like you needed to have a piece of paper in front of you. So if you said something about Caitlin Clark, you could then acknowledge everything every single player who ever came to the WNBA did for the league, not to mention all the players playing now. It's ridiculous. Look, and this is league wide, and it is preventing growth from the WNBA. It is the players, it is the media, it is the WNBA itself. They are all guilty of this. Renee Montgomery, y'all not they ain't like us. Y'all not like us. Put everyone on the cover of Time. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Caitlin Clark and the rookie class. Over and over and over again. The response to the growth, as it says here, is exposed to recurring discomfort with singular stardom in women's sports. Posts meant to amplify players are increasingly met with arguments instead of engagement. Now, to be fair, part of this is typical fandom in all sports, but in a different way, right? In other sports, somebody says, "Oh, so and so is the greatest." You're gonna that sparks a debate, and that is sort of the point of it. And that's a little different from what we get in the WNBA when it always devolves to conversations about Caitlin Clark, and then it turns nasty, and then it becomes about race and all of this other stuff. Just like the players constantly write Caitlin Clark, BTA on the Chicago Sky. Oh, the fans said awful things. Brittany Griner, constantly the fans yelled this, the fans yelled that. Alyssa Thomas, the fans are racist. They yelled this, they yelled that. They never, ever, ever bring any proof. Here's proof that it works the other way because the WNBA had to delete their post. And again, giving credit where credit's due, Duncan made it clear that responsibility does not fall on Clark or even on fans alone. It extends to the league, media outlets, and broadcasters, which is kind of what I just said, who shape how success is framed. When promotion is consistently followed by caveats, it trains audiences to see celebration as exclusion rather than progress. It's wild that the people who most scream about inclusiveness are not very inclusive, because if you disagree with them on one single thing, they do not want you to be part of their inclusive group. Same thing with diversity, right? Diversity is great as long as you agree with them on everything. That's what the WNBA fandom is like, and it limits, as it says here, it limits the upside of the league. You simply cannot have this ongoing. It is absolutely ridiculous. Now, this just mentions what I already mentioned about what she's going to do, but with the NBA. And now we get to it, folks. After this really, honestly, a good piece, we get to exactly the problem. And I guess they didn't look in the mirror and they don't recognize what it means, because we're getting down to it. The larger takeaway is not about Caitlin Clark alone. Players like Clark and Angel Reese are expanding the commercial and cultural footprint of the WNBA. That growth benefits the entire league. However, it only works if success is allowed to exist without constant recalibration, which is exactly what they just did. They just negated everything brought up in this post by doing exactly what they are saying the problem is. This is about the fact that it was announced that Caitlin Clark was going to be part of the NBA on NBC, what, pregame, halftime, I forget the exact name of the show, for a few times coming up. I believe February 1st, the one. So what's that, Sunday? I think Sunday. And that's what this article is supposed to be about. And then we get all, and it talks about how you can't constantly have, when you bring up one player for a specific thing, have to talk about all the others, right? Again, just like the Time Magazine Award, Caitlin Clark, Athlete of the Year. But the Washington Mystics coach has to insist that every single player in the league should be on the cover. It's insane. And I mean that sincerely. That is insane. If she truly believes that, she has a problem with processing reality and probably should be in an institution. But then they do the exact same thing. There's nothing in any of this article that is about Angel Reese. This was about Caitlin Clark, being announced by the WNBA that Caitlin Clark is doing this thing, and then there's just such an awful vicious attack in the comments that it has to be deleted. And then it goes on to say, hey, we shouldn't have to mention other players every time a specific player is mentioned for something that is specific to them. And here they go and do the same thing by mentioning Angel Reese at the end. Going back to what I've been saying, it's the whole Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark and the rookie class, over and over and over again. At some point, this has to stop, or you are going to limit growth, because a lot of Caitlin Clark fans, they may continue to watch Caitlin Clark. Some will tune out and they'll watch, when it's convenient, when they think about it, but not to the degree they have. But more importantly, a lot of them will stop paying attention to everything else, like, I don't know, Unrivaled. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. We'll appreciate you checking this out. As always, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Go have the day you deserve. I will talk to you later.